Gacha games. Everyone loves a gacha game. Designed to give players rewards that they have to strive and work hard for, these games are beloved by the entire world. Well, the entire world except for... Remember Gashapon? You know, those machines that you see at Toy Kingdoms and arcades? You put in a coin, twist a knob, and out comes a capsule containing anything from figurines to cards to... underwear? Basically, the whole concept boils down to this. You put in the coin and hope for a certain reward. This concept has applied itself to video games. The gacha game is a subgenre of video game that includes a system by which the player can acquire high-value characters through chance. Basically, you use coins, or pulls as they are known in gacha games, and hope for a certain reward. Let's take, for example, Hoyo vs Zenless Zone Zero. As of recording, the current banner character is Soldier Zero Anby, an S-rank Electro Attack character. Now, I really need an Electro Attack character, so I'm gonna try and get her. However, I don't have quite enough pulls at the moment. I could sell a kidney to try and get more pulls, but I kinda like my kidneys. I've had them since birth. Thankfully, there's a whole gauntlet of in-game tasks I can do to obtain pulls, for free! All I gotta do is forego sleep and all responsibilities for 3 days, and I can obtain my dream character! S-Rank Anby, here I come! Yep, therein lies the problem with these gacha games. You see a character that you want for one reason or another, and you have two choices. You could spend an absurd amount of time grinding for the free pulls, or you could give up. Now the truth is, you can theoretically get by in these games without spending any money. Many people who call themselves free-to-play players do exactly that. They play through these games, grinding out the pulls needed to gain characters, as well as the materials needed to upgrade those characters to be strong enough to be viable in the higher levels. Speaking as a brokey F2P player myself, this strategy is viable, to a point. You see, you can only get so many pulls from commissions and other in-game quests before it starts to become a genuine burden. Like, you could theoretically grind out all the pulls needed to get the character that you want, but that takes a lot of time. Time which you could be spending working, exercising, eating, raising your children, etc. Add to that the fact that many gacha systems have you fighting 50-50 chances to even get the character you're trying to get, and suddenly dropping a couple hundred pesos on some in-game currency to speed up the process doesn't seem like such a bad idea. So you do exactly that, over and over, until you get... bankrupted. But to be fair, this is all based on my very limited experience. What about someone who's actually taken the time to play more of these games and note down just how predatory or non-predatory they are? I would do it, but I've got this condition called I don't want to syndrome, so I have to look for someone who's unimpaired.
Did someone call? Hi, it's me, Sean. For this segment of the video, myself and Alden were asked to play a gacha game we weren't familiar with, in order to review its gameplay and gacha mechanics to see if the game is predatory or not. I was going to tackle another game, Crazy Ones, but let's just say that game wasn't for me. So instead, I'm going to talk about Heaven Burns Red by Key and Right Flyer Studios. A big draw for this game is in the story written by Jun Maeda. Ever heard of Clanat? Angel Beats? Charlotte. Yeah, he worked on all of those, and this is his first completely new game in 15 years. So if you're a fan of his, you're in for a real treat. As expected of an industry veteran, his story is interesting, the characters are appealing, and the voice acting and music are on point. The music especially is top-notch and composed by Jun Maeda as well. All in all, this game definitely has its appeal. I can totally see how new players like myself can get drawn in, and how older players may be inspired to stick around. But what about its gameplay and gacha mechanics? In terms of gameplay, it's your average turn-based JRPG. I probably just haven't reached deep into the combat system yet, where it looks pretty shallow so far. It is serviceable for a gacha game, but I don't think it's the main selling point of the game. Sometimes, the gameplay feels like it's there because a gacha game needs to have gameplay, instead of being there because it's vital to the enjoyment of the game. Of course, there is a second kind of gameplay, the gacha aspect. I would say that the gacha in this game is pretty stingy. To explain this, we're going to need to do some math. Heaven Burns said gives the player around a 3% chance of getting an SS rank character with a 200 pull spark, which is another term for a guarantee. According to some members of the HBR community, the game gives around 35-ish pulls every month. Combine that with the fact that you need to reach 200 pulls to get a guarantee. If you do the math, that would amount to around 4 to 5 months for a single spark. That is to say that HBR's Gacha is very stingy compared to similar games like Honkai Star Rail and Blue Archive, where it takes around 2 to 3 months to get a guarantee if you grind it hard enough. That being said, if you were really into the characters, the rough gacha system may inspire you to spend in order to acquire your waifu. Up next, we have everyone's favorite sponsor, Raid Shadow Legends. Alden was the one who played this game, so I'm going to pass the baton to him.
Raid Shadow Legends is a turn-based role-playing gacha game wherein you play as a resurrected hero of the fictional world of Teleria who has to fight the Dark Lord Siroth to restore peace. In terms of appeal, the game is pretty much a meme at this point, with countless YouTubers having promoted the game to the point of its name being essentially a punchline. Beyond that though, the game is also pretty much your average turn-based RPG. The visuals, to be honest, are not that appealing, and so I'm tempted to say that most of the appeal of this game is the meme at this point. But this game manages to maintain a healthy player base of around 1.2 million, so I digress. In terms of the monetization element, one of the first things that I was immediately greeted with was several pages of pop-ups. Open the game, pop-ups. Finish the tutorial, pop-ups. The game has 2 types of currency, silver and gems. You can buy several in-game items with these currencies, and there are several currency bundles which are being sold in the shop which cost real money. The gacha system also works on a pity system known as mercy. For example, after using 200 ancient shards, each shards you use afterwards increases your chances of getting a legendary by 5%. What sucks about this is that there is no real guarantee baked into the system. If you recall, in HBR, 200 pulls meant a guaranteed double S rank character. In Raid, 200 pulls means only an additional 5% chance of getting a legendary, upping your odds from 1% to 6%. Insane! Of course, 5% is added on per every shard used after 200, meaning the chances can increase pretty quickly. But it is not as good as a guarantee. Raid only has guarantees in special guaranteed champion events, where you have to spend a certain amount of shards to guarantee a character. Other than that, the game does give you rewards for things like playing the game for a certain amount of time and even just logging in daily. There are also side missions, quests, challenges, and in-game events which also give rewards. But according to some disgruntled community members, these rewards just simply aren't enough. Overall, the game doesn't seem to rely on things like insanely difficult gameplay to force players' hands into spending. Instead, it seems like the game has no problem bombarding the player with prompts to buy in-game items, a much less subtle approach.
And there you have it. I'd like to thank Sean and Alden for playing these games and demonstrating their mechanics.
No problem.
So, as you can see, these games definitely have something sketchy going on in terms of their monetization. Heaven Burns Red has gacha odds that are just completely unrealistic to reach on a regular basis without plenty of time or money. Raid Shadow Legends practically screams at you to buy in-game currency, and that's not even mentioning other games such as Genshin Impact and Honkai Star Rail being total grindfests, or even EA Sports' FC25, formerly known as FIFA, where the gacha system attempts to bait you into thinking that you've gotten a really strong player, only for you to find out that you've actually just packed a completely average player with the same position and nationality. You know, after reading and learning about all these experiences and experiencing some of it for myself, it's pretty clear that gacha games have quite a few tricks up their sleeves when it comes to getting you to spend. And when I was studying these tricks, I came across this helpful article from Birch's Health. As you can see, this page is all about casinos, how they reel in players, and how they keep those players invested enough to spend more. You know, I was reading through and I was reminded of just how similar some of these tricks were to the ones that gacha games use. Particularly, reading about how casinos use atmosphere and sensory simulation reminded me of how some of these games have truly breathtaking art and character designs and crazy animations that would definitely attract a certain audience. And then you have the way that cognitive biases are exploited, such as the gambler's fallacy being abused by things like Raid Shadow Legends' mercy system, as well as the near-miss effect used by games like FC25. Many gacha games also feature something akin to a loyalty system in the form of daily login bonuses. And it got me to realize that these games aren't all that different from casinos because at the end of the day, they're both businesses designed to make money from you, the consumer. The games are designed to be attractive and appealing in order to reel you in. After that, depending on the game, they use either repetitive gameplay or the promise of greater power to urge you to pull out the wallet. Now, do I think all of these games are inherently bad? Goodness no! If you can get past the predatory gambling mechanics, there are some genuinely fun titles to be discovered. ZZZ is an engaging, fast-paced beat-em-up with superb animations and aesthetics. Games like Arknights have gained massive popularity from their gameplay and story. These titles each have their place in gaming, and I can see why their fanbases ended up falling in love with them. However, just like real-life love, we all need to keep an eye out for abuse. Like I said before, these games are still businesses, and it's best to remain cautious while playing, lest the temptations to spend become too strong. I found that it's important to keep your mental fortitude strong while playing these games. Remind yourself that it's okay to take breaks before you burn yourself out trying to get a character, that there's more to life than obtaining that 6-star unit. There absolutely is more to these games than just collecting characters, and even if you end up not being as strong as some other players because you don't have the characters they have, so what? Focus on your own fun. Enjoy these games for what they are if you really are into them. If the urge to spend cold hard cash is just too strong, step away. It only takes one nudge to fall into the rabbit hole of gacha gaming, and many take years to get out, after which their financial situations are almost never the same. Well, that was informative. Thankfully, after all the grinding I did earlier, I finally got my S rank. That being said, that is the last time I'm ever gonna risk life and limb, or even, God forbid, my kidneys for the sake of a video game character. Is that a vampire girl?